Okay, so introductions. My name's Yuri. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a mathematician, and I'm going to go through how to use this library I've created, starting from creating a new project through recording, uploading, mastering, and uploading. So I am going to assume that some knowledge of web development in React, but start off, here are sort of the sites that will be convenient to have bookmarked. So the React's website and their documentation. You will also need Node.js in order to compile TypeScript files, and this is written in TypeScript, so as opposed to just plain, that's not the right website. So yeah, TypeScript will be very handy to keep this site bookmarked as well. I like, for documentation, I really like this website devdocs.io that has a whole bunch of different documentation things put together, and you can just start typing like CSS and then or whatever type of like Java documentation you want to look up. So for actually getting started, I'm going to start by cloning this tutorial repository. So this is an example of a completed project, as opposed to just sort of a bare bones minimal project structure. But that might be easier to use when we're getting started. So go git clone this tutorial. Okay, so I'll follow the instructions. So npm install to install all the different packages and webpack and stuff. And now node server.js. And now if we go to localhost 8080, hopefully. Okay, so we've got, let me try to unmaximize this. So now we've got this tutorial video that I put. This is the video that's on the front page of the website for it. Sort of goes through and shows how to use a lot of the features.
So once you've coded your app,
I'm going to open up a couple other console windows in the same directory. Use just yet. So start off, we'll just take a look at like the project structure. So index.html, this is the did I make my font size bigger? This is just the HTML file that you're seeing here. So this is the HTML file where the Ractive is embedded. So there's not actually, since this is in React, there's not that much like code here. The actual code will get loaded by React into main. Then, so package.json, this is pretty standard. So we've got all the packages with RP in front are sort of the Ractive-Player namespace. webpack is going to tell this how to compile our TypeScript into, just the entry point TypeScript into a single bundle file. So bundle.js is the final JavaScript file that gets created. And then server.js is what we were running in here. So this does a few things. This has a live reload, is running a live reload server, so that'll automatically refresh when we make changes. And then, serving this. So the lib, there's 3 directories here, lib, source, and style. So style has a bunch of Stylus files, so these are going to get compiled to CSS. I actually need to install this. I just got a new laptop. My last one, several of the keys weren't working anymore, so anytime I wanted to type a T, I had to copy and paste it from a document. So this one works now, but I'm still getting it set up. So here's where all the style files are, like the CSS stuff is put. So then style, this is like the entry point for that. Source is all the code for this particular Ractive. And then lib, so the way I've done it here is I've put some other files in lib. Once you start building, like creating your own repository of content, you might have your own like library folder, so that'll contain stuff that's like shared between a lot of different Ractives. So source is like the stuff for just this one specifically, and then lib is stuff that could get shared between them. So as you build up your repository, you'll maybe build up your own library of things, and then maybe eventually those can, like a lot of the separate packages that I mentioned here, like all of these were originally stuff in my library folder that eventually got extracted into packages. So the entry point for this is index.tsx. A lot of stuff here is sort of commented out, that like you are often going to like comment stuff out or do stuff while you're recording, but then like not have it in the final version. So this is a little bit overwhelming at first. I'll go through and explain all the different, like what's going on here. But to get started, let's just try to modify what's on the first slide. So I'm going to comment out everything that's in here. I don't want to erase it because we'll come back to it. Then I'm going to create a new file for this demo. So demo.tsx. Then I'm just going to copy everything in the intro into demo.tsx. And then we'll put demo here. And feel free at any time to just like unmute yourself and interrupt me to ask questions. Okay, so So when we make changes to the TypeScript, so here's where we are going to use the other two windows. So we have one console window running the server. So to compile our TypeScript changes, we'll run webpack. Hang on. Maybe I do. Why do I not have webpack? Okay, so if you haven't, if your system is not set up this way, you should have export path. You should always have the .bin subfolder of your current, of like node modules of the current directory in your path folder. So now if I type webpack -- watch, now it'll detect the webpack binary in there. Yeah. So let's see if that reloaded. Yeah, okay, so now it still thinks the video is like 8 minutes and 13 seconds, but we don't have anything past the starting slide. So now we can go and like change around with this. So in demo, let's strip out most of the code and oops. Get rid of all of this. Don't need any of that either. I guess. Yeah, so this is sort of the minimal amount of stuff that we'll need. I'm just going to get rid of all of this and put it back in later. So we can sort of see one step at a time, like what the different things are needed for. So the main things we've got here are utils, and then these during and from utilities from the utils.authoring. So what during does is it'll do show how this works first, and then break it down. Okay, so now it just says hello world, and then once I go forward a little bit, it says this is my very first Ractive. So the way this library is built is very much similar to like slideshows, where you kind of like successively reveal things, because that's sort of the original use case was for like sort of informational educational videos like that. So the how you put in like indicate where you want events to happen is in what's called markers. So when you're viewing a Ractive, you can press W to go back one marker and E to go forward one marker. So I chose these keys just because they were sort of convenient on the keyboard. So if you're in here, then pressing like E and W will go back and forth between this. So we'll use this later when we're recording, and it's also very useful when we're developing in terms of getting around. So it's a little bit, if I delete all these markers right now, it might get angry, because if I still have code referencing markers that no longer exist, then it'll like throw an error to prevent us from accidentally making mistakes. But so let me just go and remove other things that are referencing explicit markers, and then I think I comment all of this out. Okay, and so also the markers, the list of markers in here is how it like detects how long the how long the
HTML, CSS
video is. So now it's down to like 0 minutes and 22 seconds. So these have been filled in with actual values from the recording stage. When you are just starting, so if you're creating a new thing, you can just put like any values in here you want. So I tend to just like copy and paste something with like 1 minute, and then yeah, that'll get filled in later. So actually, we mentioned right now there's sort of I like to break down the stage, or break down the process of writing these into 4 stages. So there's the creative stage, which is deciding what you want to say. So sort of nothing I can do to, yeah, the library is not part of that. That's sort of the hardest part. And I think even irrespective of the interactivity, if I can make just the creative part the hardest part versus, and then the coding much easier, that by itself, even without interactivity, is I think a big win for the library. Here's how you increase font size. Okay. Then authoring. So authoring is the process of coding, like writing the code for this Ractive. And that's going to be sort of the longest part, and I'll sort of go through how to do each of the steps, each of the stages quickly, so you can see like how to actually get something up on your website, and then I'll go back and like dive in depth into authoring. So recording is where you like record audio and stuff, and like the timing of various things, and then mastering is final touches and uploading it to a server. So let's go back into markers. So in our code, I had these two during and from little utilities. So what during does is it'll set a piece of content to be visible whenever the marker name starts with the string you pass. So I tend to break up my content into different slides. And so like the playback slide says, okay, this is going to be visible during playback. This is going to be visible during player. And so then I can put all of that like block of content into one file, and it'll like be independent of the other stuff. And so it'll only be visible when the marker name starts with this. And then from will make a piece of content visible starting at a name. So let me do first this. So, and you can also, you can do this just with one marker name. So if we save that, live reload will refresh this. Oh, and it's angry. So, okay, error marker intro.first/first does not exist. Actually, in my usual setup, I have live reload set to only refresh when CSS refreshes, or to only update CSS, so it doesn't like reload the whole page every time you edit JavaScript. Annoying. So intro/first and oops. Intro/cool. And again, I can just put like whatever numbers here for the duration. Doesn't matter yet. Okay, so hello world. Now navigating using my E and W keys. This is my very first Ractive. It's so cool to have you all here. You can also, if you put a second value in from, then it'll stop being visible like at the second one. So now say hello world, my very first Ractive. It's so cool to have you all here. The other one is gone. Now it's important to point out that like the spacing of this is still where it was before. So it still has the same spacing as if that other thing were there. So the way that the show hiding functionality works, so here you can actually see, so the data from first, data from last, data during, those were attributes added by these utilities. And then here it's got style, opacity 0, pointer events none. So that is going to make it like invisible, but it's still going to take up space. So the rationale for doing this as opposed to display none is, or just like not rendering, like removing the code is, in my original use case, I was using a lot of math jacks, which takes time to render. So if I had like removed stuff from the document and then put it back in, there would be like a layout flash. So the way all of my videos are done is to like actually like renders all of the HTML content in the entire video and then just selectively show hides it, which surprisingly like does not actually cause me any performance issues. But you probably could get away with like just show hiding or like removing stuff from the document. And in some cases, you might want to like have stuff take up space, even when it's not there. Maybe in other cases you wouldn't. Depends on what you're doing. The other thing is that the reason for hiding this with opacity 0 and pointer events none, as opposed to say visibility hidden, is that this it basically if it realizes it needs to hide one particular element like this when we're in a different slide, then it doesn't have to like go in and hide everything below that. Okay. So we've done some just very basic. Put in some markers, put in some text. And we also show you how to do styling. So whoops. Oh, right. So this is a little convoluted because I'm using a CSS preprocessor. So I should probably just make a file for that, I guess. So I'm going to just copy this into, I should probably add this to the tutorial repository. I'll make a file for this comment, this command. Okay, so we'll just say what this is doing. Compress is like it's going to create an optimized CSS file, so this is not superhuman readable. And then the important part here is include CSS and include. It's going to also include plain CSS files, and it's going to allow importing CSS files from node modules. That's because a lot of the plugins that I've developed also like ship their own CSS. So here, it's importing the CSS from like the rp-paint and rp-prompt modules, which I'll like cover later. If you don't want to use a CSS processor, you could also like link the CSS for these in like, index.html. That's what we're doing. Okay, so now it's watching. So these are sort of the three console windows we're using. One is to run the server, one is to compile TypeScript, one is for CSS. So now if we don't want this to be so big. Oops. Okay, so now going to
for
trying to move the window. Okay, so let's go and add a CSS line. Say h1 color purple. Great. And so what happened there is like Stylus was watching and like compiled our CSS changes, and then since we have live reload, it like updates, it refreshed the CSS automatically. So it's really nice to be able to just like, yeah, make aesthetic changes to your video and just see the previews happen immediately, even while the video is running.
Into yours.
And like we can have, this is my very first Ractive. It's so cool to have you all here. So like P color green, font size 3M, and just updates right in the browser immediately. Okay, so there's a lot more to say about the process of authoring your Ractive, but let's sort of go through how to record and upload it. Like, you know, go from having something on your computer to something that other people on the internet can watch, and then we'll go and do a deep dive through all the content and different things you have to do to make it compatible. Are there any questions up till this point? Okay, so for recording, we're going to have to go in and enable some recording mods. So the recording stuff is commented out by default. Eventually it would be nice to have just a slick way of switching between production and development mode. But so to get so I'm going to uncomment here. This is the recording CSS. And this is the recording JavaScript. Oh, and also this is, you might want for development to actually like comment all of this out and then comment all of this out and then use these scripts instead. These are going to have like more descriptive error messages from React, for example. But so if we enable the recording CSS and JavaScript, and then we go into index.tsx. So the way this is implemented is these controls, these video controls, are very highly customizable. And so the plugins are usually implemented as custom controls. So here I have to uncomment import recording control from RP recording. Then here, so there's a few other commented out controls we'll use. We'll enable the recording control. And actually these plugins, so like the code recorder plugin is for the like live code playback example that I have, but for now we won't have any plugins. Okay, so that now that we've reloaded that, we get this new recording control down here. If we open that up, oops. It'll give us, so it doesn't have, we're not allowed to record audio yet. That's a bit tricky, but if we record markers, then we can start going, oh, and it has there's like keyboard controls here to start and stop recording. and you can customize these. So if we do this, it's a new computer, so I might need to change this. Let's try, oops. Can Control-2 work? This is not good. Navigator. Okay, so, oh yeah, I think right now there's a bug where it's actually going to record everything, even if I tell it like I've only selected audio, not to record audio. But since we're going to want to record audio eventually anyway, as well have to say how to do that now. So, yeah, so as explained here, in order to record audio, you need to be accessing the page over HTTPS. So that's a bit annoying. Probably the easiest way to do this is if you have a server that you have access to that has like an SSL certificate, is to just upload it there. So I'm going to do that. But this explains how, if you have like a local server, how to get SSL, like HTTPS set up there. So this is probably one of the most annoying parts, though. So I'm going to upload this to a directory on ractive-player.org. So sftp rp-docs. That is that is not good. Ew. What is I see. So this is a new computer, and I haven't configured the yeah, so I don't have access to that site. Give me 1 second to figure this out. All right, sorry about that. So now I've gotten my SSH or SFTP working again. So we'll go SFTP to the ractive-player.org server. So ractive-player.org/demo. There's nothing there right now, but if we put index.html, put bundle.js, and put style.css, I think that should be all we need. Yeah. Okay, and so now, and since we've got the recording stuff, the recording JavaScript enabled, it's prompting me to like allow access to the microphone. And so this is why, actually, like I made sure to strip all the recording JavaScript before, like from the recording before uploading it, that I had uploaded before, because if you leave that in, even if you leave the JavaScript file for even if you even leave this in without like loading it in index.tsx, your viewers might be prompted for like allowing microphone access, which you don't want. Okay, so now we have our thing on an HTTPS server. So now we can record. I think this will work now. So I press this to start recording. Maybe I press this to start recording. Okay, great. So this works. So now let's actually refresh this.
Yuri, I cannot
Yes.
see your screen.
Oh,
Screen sharing at the moment.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. I forgot to turn screen sharing back on.
No problem. Yeah. Thanks.
Sorry. So what I did, that's very stupid of me. So what I did was I uploaded my files from SS to this server. So now this is, you can access this on /demo. Yeah, what I had done here is just going through SFTP into here, and then the only things I needed to put were the index.html, bundle, and style file. Can you mute yourself? I'm getting just a bit of feedback.
Sure.
Yeah, so now from here, yeah, we go. I'll set these to be my shortcuts for recording. So I'll say, okay, hello world. This is my very first Ractive. It's so cool to have you all here. Okay, and so now I'm given a couple things here. So these markers, so these are the recorded durations. So now I'll paste over this. I need to make sure I select the whole thing. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now, so like that's where the actual durations get filled in. And then we'll download this audio file. Where did that go? Okay, so now we want to yeah, put that recording into our Ractive. So yeah, this if I save this, and then in our local version of this, now it's like the duration is now at 7 seconds. So to put the audio file in first, so let me go and sort of explain how this is set up. So we've got the audio file is put in index.tsx. You have one audio file for the whole Ractive. And then this is saying like load the file from media URL /audio. So what is media URL? So that's defined here. So this is just a file called media URL. So this is like in development, media URL is your local, like your own computer. In production, you might want to have, like I have it set up so like all my audio files are hosted on like a CloudFront S3 server. So this, you know, I guess Ractives, you don't have to deal with like video hosting, like uploading your video to YouTube just for hosting, but you still have to find where to host the audio files. So when we're developing, we'll set media URL to be dot, but then once we upload it, we'll switch it to this. And again, this would be, you can probably have a cleaner version of this with like separate bundles for production and development. So if I change media URL to dot, I still need to actually create a folder called audio in here, and then put audio.webm in there. Yeah, and the audio, like the audio file that I made when I created the original tutorial demo is not in there because I've sort of said like don't include any media files in the Git repository. But so now if we play this, okay, hello world. This is my very first Ractive. It's so cool to have you all here. I'm not sure if you could hear the audio from that, but it was playing the audio that I had set and like was synced up to the to like when I press the markers. So now this is this is sort of, we've done the basic recording step. The final stage, I said, is mastering, so like uploading this to a server where everyone else can use it. So we've already seen, I guess, like the uploading part, but there's a whole bunch more steps that are required for like making sure this actually works smoothly. So here in the documentation, so I should have introduced the documentation site. So there's a reference section, which is not, hang on. Why is, that's weird. Okay, so I have this mastering checklist that explains like a checklist of different things to go through before making sure your Ractive is like production ready. So mastering checklist. So one is to remove all of the, what is this? So to remove the references to like the recording, RP recording module, because as I said, that'll give your viewers like a, do you want to allow recording audio thing that you don't want. Okay, so remove both of those, and then go back and also strip it out here. Again, it's a little, kind of clumsy to have to manually switch all this stuff out when you're switching between development and recording. If I knew more about webpack, you can like configure a way, I'm sure, to just do that more smoothly with a production and development like bundle or entry point. Okay, so that so now like the recording control is stripped out and it's not prompting us for that. Okay, so remove the RP recording script tag. Step 2 we'll talk about later. This is for mobile compatibility. Also, we'll deal with that later. Okay, so for joining audios into a file, into a single file, so you can record like your Ractive in several different segments, and it's pretty easy to just concatenate like the different marker lengths together. But the audio files you need to join into a single audio file. That is due to something called the web autoplay policy. So the web autoplay policy, which is actually really important to understand in general for working with this. Basically, a web page cannot start playing an audio file or like a media, anything with audio without the user interacting with it in some way. So like clicking on something. So that means like if this video were just running and it went through one audio file and then it got here and then you tried to switch to another audio file, like we wouldn't be allowed to do that. So this is why you have to join everything into one audio file. If you were trying to do something more like creative with this, where you wanted to switch the audio depending on like the user making a choice, so it's like a choose your own adventure video, you could do that, but what you would have to do is somehow like if you had two buttons here and they like click which adventure they want to go on, in that like once they have that click, use that click event to swap out the audio file. And again, you wouldn't be able to just like swap out an audio segment in one piece of the video. You would have to like load it into another audio thing for the like whole video, unless you had a way of like making sure they were always clicking before going through it. Okay, so join audio files into a single file. We only have one here. So then we also need to fix the audio files that were produced. So right now we have just a WebM audio file. So actually I'll do step 6 before step 5. So we want to convert we want to convert the WebM file, or also make a MP4 version, because Safari doesn't support WebM audio. Okay, so if we do that, now we have an audio.web or audio.mp4 file. But we also need to, should be split across 2 lines. Not sure why the formatting got broken. We also need to fix the WebM file that was produced because it doesn't have the metadata that's needed for seeking. So yeah, actually, I think if we do this right now. Okay, hello world. Yeah, again, I'm not sure if you could hear the audio on that, but like I started it in the middle of the video, and when I pressed play, it was playing the audio from the very start because the WebM file didn't have the correct metadata for just seeking to a point. So to fix the WebM file, we do this, and then rename audio fixed to audio. Okay, so now we have 2 audio files that are working correctly. Generate thumbnails for the video. I'm going to skip over that for now. That's also sort of complicated. Make sure there's CSS if you want to, if you're using like custom fonts. So like think here, yeah. I was using Allegria font for like this, and so just to make sure that you don't, if you're using fonts that you've like installed locally on your computer, might not show up for your viewers if you're not doing this. You might not realize that. So it's good to, as with all websites, but it becomes particularly important for here is to like test on multiple platforms. CSS, make sure media URL. So some of these are just like optimization things, like compressing the JavaScript. So I guess this is compressed, compressing the CSS and whatnot, and then like make sure media URL is set to your productions asset host. So again, if you had some like S3 CloudFront server where you're hosting all your files, then you would comment this out and uncomment this after uploading your audio stuff to that to your media host. We're going to stick here with I guess just having the audio stuff locally. So now I have to upload the audio, upload, and again for my like actual server setup, I have a much slicker way of doing this, like Git and auto deploy to Heroku and whatnot. Okay, so now leave page. All right, so now we've got, okay, hello world, our recorded video with the correct like markers and timing. This is my very first rack, and we can seek to like any part in the video, and the audio will work. So this is most of the steps of like going through and like getting the thing you've created onto a server. I guess the last steps are about like, which I should add a bit about here, is then like right now, so far we've been going and viewing just like the HTML file containing the Ractive. Then what you want to do, of course, is like embed that somewhere on a page. So how you do that is you put an iframe referencing the, where is iframe? Sorry, this isn't an iframe. Yeah. So you put an iframe just pointing to that HTML file containing the Ractive. And then here I have some CSS. So this is just setting it to, excuse me, this 62.5 percent padding bottom thing, this is a trick to get it to, this is just some CSS to get it to the 1610? Yeah, 1610 aspect ratio. So you can just like copy this type of this CSS. You don't need like this stuff. But the CSS that I've done here to anytime you want to embed a Ractive, sort of have like 2 container divs to get the aspect ratio right, and then this iframe. Okay, and yeah, and you can just copy that from like what I've got on this server. The other thing that you need to do when placing a Ractive on a server has to do with the full screen button. So on desktop, you can just press full screen and it works very nicely. Mobile devices do not have a full screen, like they don't you can give you access to like the full screen functionality. But what you can do is sort of fake that by just getting your page to resize the iframe to be like the size of the whole page. So there's somewhere in here. Yeah, so on the site I've placed a file called fakefullscreen.js, and what this does is if you're on a mobile device and the viewer presses the full screen button, it'll detect that like it can't access the full screen API, and so it'll send a message to the parent window called something like fake full screen. Yeah, and so again you can just like copy this this JavaScript that I've got here and use that for all your pages. And what it's doing is just like adding some listeners such that anytime it receives fake full screen, it'll update some CSS values. So you have to put this fake full screen JS file on your server, and then you also need to add a little bit of CSS for the fake full screen. Do I have that up here? Yeah, so that's documented here in the authoring section, in the section of like things you need to do to make stuff work on mobile. And so here's the JavaScript code you need, and then here's the CSS code you need. So this will, yeah, if you've accessed a page on a mobile device, this will fake the full screen behavior to make it work smoothly. So that's just the compressed all the different stages of creating a Ractive. So maybe I'll now go back and do this try to do this last step for making thumbnail previews. So right now it's sort of displaying nothing, which is not very nice. So this is also a bit of a process. So first we need to download, there's a separate plugin for doing thumb captures. So I have to download, yeah, so you have to download this extension for Chrome. So let's, I think I have this, well, I do have it on my downloaded already, but for the demo, let's just clone this, although we only need, we don't need the whole repository, we only need sort of the extension. cd rp capture / extension. So this the thumb capturing plugin only works on Chrome for now. Also don't know if it'll work on Chromium. So need to go into extensions. Okay, so in Chromium, or in Chrome, we have to go into extensions, enable developer mode to let you install like unofficial extensions, and then we'll go load unpacked. So load unpacked, and then select this extension. Okay, so now we have this Ractive Video Thumbnail Generator extension. So we will go in here. All right. So to record thumbs, we again need to uncomment some stuff. So import thumb capture. So this is the JavaScript part of this in our, and then here we'll have another player control for doing the thumbnail capture. And so if we record that, now we have this new little button for that icon is supposed to be a picture of a thumbnail. So it's still a little bit of a process to configure this. Okay, so we've done this. Oh yeah, so we need to do, you have to specifically say like which domains an extension is allowed to run on and allowed to like access your screen to, screen capture. So we have to go in this extension file, we have to go into manifest.json and enter our domain here. I'd really like there to be an easier way to do this, but I don't know if there is. So localhost 8080, and since we're using the demo site, or sorry, the documentation site for some of the recording, I'll also put that in to make sure I can use it. So ractive-player.org. Okay, so if we allow that, and we refresh, okay, maybe you're not allowed to do ports. Okay, so I think that'll work. So now I refresh this. There should be, I need there's a button for the extension. How do I customize this control bar? I want this to be yes. Maybe let me try this on. Whoops. Ractive-Player.org. Where is the? How do I customize the buttons here? Extensions. Sorry, there's supposed to be. Oh, okay. So here's the button. So you have to sort of a very silly process. Before the extension's allowed to do anything on the page, you need to click it. So right now it just sort of uses the stock logo and whatever that I copied from somewhere. So clicking on it, that is all you need to do there. And then you need to copy the extension ID. You paste the extension ID into here, and then you press record, and you don't touch it for while it does its thing. Okay, so it records, I think it captures, yes, thumbnails like every 4 seconds, so it did not produce very much, but it'll produce a whole bunch of like thumbnail sheets as PNGs, and then you save, go through and you save all of those. So then here, so again, I created an audio folder which was not visible in the repository since yeah, they're sort of like stored on the media server. So I'll create a new folder, thumbs, and then 0.png. So what this is like just a bunch of, I guess there's not very many screens here since the video is so short, but this is like a grid of a bunch of just like screen caps of the video. So then where thumbnails are specified in, so in index.tsx, here's where I've got, so thumb data is, you can keep this for like all of these settings for any Ractive you use. So the frequency is like every 4 seconds, width, height is the dimensions of that. And then the media URL is, so like again, if we had uploaded this to a server, we would need to upload that thumbs directory to like this CloudFront server. So now if we reload that, now we get nice thumbnail previews of what's in the video. You can also, last thing you can do is thumbs is so that you can have highlights. So highlights will like indicate a particular part in the video. So I guess you can do title, first Ractive, and then time. So the time you can, I think you can specify a time as like, you could specify a time as like 2.602. But what I've done here is using, so here PS is script.parseStart. So that's a method that where you can plug in, like just give it the name of a marker and it'll give back the starting time. So I think if we just do it like this, it'll work. Oh yeah, but the previous
world
here because it's so soon. So let's do time or parse start intro / first. Does that work better? Yeah. Oh, so yeah, I think it was annoyed the first time that I didn't have like a 0 colon the time. So here now we've got like thumbs, and there's this like special marker placed in the video where it says like here's something interesting that's happening. And so then again, to put that on to get that onto your server, we'll go and you have to put the thumbs directory up, and then put the I want to after I've recorded the thumbs, I want to take them out of, or take the code for that out of here. So now go and put the uploaded bundle.js onto the server. So now this demo that we've put on our server has those nice thumbnails and like highlights. Okay, so I think I'm gonna take a 5-minute coffee break. Done a lot so far, and to get back, I can answer questions and then start going into like how do you actually add interactivity and the sexy features to your video. All right, so we've now seen how to gotten through the hardest part, which is all the mastering and recording and dotting your T's and crossing your I's. So now we'll go in and do a deep dive into all the different things you can do in authoring and all the different effects. While we were paused, I had a question about can you use this for like auto-generating or like loading data from a JSON file for your video? And the answer is absolutely yes. This is just HTML, so anything you can do in a normal web page you can do in here. So you can load data from a JSON file via AJAX and then have that displayed. The only tricky part is I said with web autoplay policy, having dynamically generated audio is, I think, possible, but it could be tricky. I have a partly working implementation of live streaming, sort of experiment of that, where you could have your just sort of code a shell of a Ractive and then have that talk to a server over WebSockets or HTTP polling or whatever, and then have like a host broadcasting to the video, and have them load from that. Okay, so now we're going to go into all the different authoring features. So, and sort of the various, maybe it'll be a good way to organize this is to do it by sort of by all of these different packages. Explain what they do. Okay, so we've already seen the recording package and the thumbnail capturing package. What I'm going to focus on next is the prompts package, which is to make it very convenient to record. So in here, so in the original intro file, I had import intro prompt from prompts. So we'll copy that and intro prompt. So again, this is another thing that, like in the production version, I had. Well, actually, no. The way I did it is, so if we open up prompts.tsx, most of this is commented out. But we'll see what happens when we uncomment it. So it says this is commented out. You could choose to leave it in, though, for accessibility. Just going to uncomment all of this stuff. We had a bunch of stuff commented out for development. And then, whoops. Okay. So now, actually that'll probably get angry because it's mentioning markers that don't exist. So yeah, let's create a demo prompt instead. So what this does is it provides like prompts to read from when you're recording so that you don't have to, like I find it very hard to think about what I'm trying to say and say it at the same time and remember my lines. I stumble over my words. So if we go intro/first, I just put this here, I say, hello world. This is my very first Ractive. What is it upset about? the wrong. Aha. Oh, I have to call this demo prompt. This is a good reason to, so here's a good reason to use, so I was saying, the development version of these scripts, then we get more informative errors from React. So I'll comment all of these out as well. Okay, still not the most helpful error message in the world. e.props is undefined. Oh, yes, no closing tag. That would do it. Okay, so now when we reload, I have this nice little dialog floating around that tells me what I'm supposed to say. So the current, what a tech prompt for the current marker is like highlighted and visible, but I can also see sort of a faded out version of what I'm supposed to say next. So this makes it very easy when recording to just say like, hello world, this is my very first Ractive. And you can go into add more. So each of these consists of, like, a prompt is a collection of cues, so a prompt will make one of these boxes. So I usually have like one prompt for each slide. And then the cues, each cue is you give it the name of a marker and then like what you want to say. You can also do inline cues. So if you cue on equals intro / cool. That's the name of it, yeah. Like this with just an empty tag. Then the way this will display is, hello world, this is my very first Ractive. Then it'll just display like a pipe character. It's so cool to have you here. So that can be useful when you don't want to like break up the text into lots of different steps. So then you can go and record, and when you're recording, just read off from the prompt what you're supposed to say. And since you're not screencasting, like the prompts will not make it into the final recording. This is just you're sort of only recording logical events like marker changes and audio and yeah, and keys recording maybe, but not like this. So now let's do something. That's the prompt package. So now the first really cool thing is yeah, the coding. So let's see how to do a code recording. So again, I'll make sure I've got the recording package loaded. Whoops, index.tsx. So again, this this tutorial repository that's the file on the homepage like has a bunch of, you can just look at the source code for this to see how to do various things. So import recording control, and now here is where we'll do the import code recorder plugin. And here we now need to add the code recorder plugin to the recording control plugins. So now it's got, that was not good. You might need to recompile this style sheet. That is strange. And second, why is it unhappy about that? Okay, sorry, let me Oh, I know what happened. So I uncommented the recording JavaScript, but I also need to uncomment the recording CSS. Okay, so now we've got this code recording option here. So we'll copy what we have in there's a code mirror slide that shows how to use this. I'll just copy all of that into our demo slide. So this change this back to intro. Maybe to be more accurate, I'll rename the markers to demo. So demo. Actually, that's a bad idea because, yeah, again, it'll sort of get angry if you are referencing markers that no longer exist. So right now we've commented out the part that's recording. So it says uncomment this to record typing. So recorder equals this. Then we're not going to have the replay yet because we haven't recorded anything to replay. Then the code mirror prompt. Yeah, okay, so let's go through this. Debug this. Marker code mirror does not exist. Ah, yes. I think I'll just do the recording first and then go through like what line by line what all of these things are doing. Start equals intro. Marker, oh, right, so it's upset because the code mirror prompt is referencing the code mirror marker. Okay, now, and I also need the code booth CSS. So once we fix that, we have this lovely code recording interface. So from here I can do like console.log, hello world, and I've got there's a shortcut. If I press Control Enter, it will like run. You can also do from here. And I think Control K. No, maybe not on this one, but I can press clear to clear this. Of course, we want to do a recording, so again, we'll upload this to a place with HTTPS. Put index.html. Where is the demo? Refresh this. Okay, so now we've got, now I think this should be working. Oh, sorry. Okay, let's do that for, oh, and pause recording will let you like pause the recording and then like resume without like disrupting the flow of the audio. It's very handy if you need to like take a breath. And discard will just throw away the recording without saving it. Okay, so now let's try recording some code. So this is, we'll just do a basic hello world example. Hello world. You can run that, and this appears for the viewer. You can say console.log hello world. We do an example with arrays. Its names equals mark for const name of names, console.log name, and print that out. And then we'll press Alt-R again to stop recording. So now I've got these marker durations, which I'll paste in here again, and this is only doing the intro one. now I've got this recording, this keyboard recording. So that I put into recordings.ts. Paste that in here. And then I download the audio again. Oh, I think it's still just saving it to my downloads. Yeah. Okay, so now go delete the audio files we had before. Put this in. I think that should do it. So now, okay. Hello world. This is my very first Ractive-Player. So I think there's a sort of feel like there's a CSS issue going on here. What is this? Oh, right. Sorry. So after we have recorded, now we need to actually tell it to replay the recording. So comment out recorder. Tell it to replay. Marker code mirror does not exist. Why? Marker number of let's see where in bundle.js it is saying this. So this is happening in, oh, it might be that it's still importing. Could be that it's still importing the code mirror slide, even though it's not using. That. Yeah, so let's put webpack into, to make it easier to debug things. That is not helpful. Markers, prompts, highlights. Yeah, but that's not being loaded. Marker code mirror does not exist. Bundle.js 281. First time. During intro. Should not be referencing code mirror slide anywhere. Well, let's just uncomment this for now and see if that makes it happy. Okay, hello world. This is my very first Ractive. It's so cool to have you all here. Well, I prefer not to do live debugging, but that's instructive. So export const code recording. Yeah, this should work. Prompts. We'll get rid of all this to be safe. Marker number of code mirror. it's not mentioned. It's like definitely not referencing the code mirror slide from here. Or is it there? Sorry, equals code mirror. Very puzzled by this. Wonder if we... No, it's still compiling webpack. And this is still our local version, not the online version. Where is it saying code mirror? Code replay. Start code mirror. Yeah, it seems like it's not reparsing this. It's very strange. So yeah, it's importing the demo file. Let's try that. Oh, what it's probably doing is I probably made a syntax error somewhere, and it's refusing to. Yeah, that's fine. Marker code mirror does not exist. So strange. Start equals intro. Right, I'm going to pause the recording for a second while I... All right, we're back. So the issue was a very embarrassing, stupid bug in the actual rp-codebooth package, but that has now been fixed. So update, run npm update, and now this will work. So now we've got, so this is, we'll just do a basic hello world example, hello world. So now it's playing the audio and the code that we had recorded and playing through that. You can seek, you can go in Playground and experiment with the code yourself. So that's now very, very nice and what we wanted. So going back to our list of different packages, explaining what all the different packages do. Oops. So yeah, we've covered several of these. So the code booth package, there's two packages related to code. The rp-codemirror package is a lower level thing. It deals with just the, like having this code mirror instance and the recording of code. Then the code booth package is this actual interface of like code, playground, copy run, buttons, the output pane and whatnot. So the code booth package is, if that suits your needs, you can use that. But if you want something more customizable, then you can just use the rp-codemirror package directly, and then you can make whatever kind of UI that you want. rp-cursor and rp-paint packages, those are explained in the tutorial and like in the source code for the tutorial, so maybe I won't go into that. But I'll talk about maybe how to use some more of the, how to put in more interactivity. And again, now that we've recorded this, this code demo, we would go through and we could re-record the thumbs for this. So we'd have to put the thumb capture plugin back in. Demo that. Yeah, that's still there. And then I have to do this same thing. Oh, need to not have that there. Okay. Click the extension. Put in the extension ID, and then just let it do its thing. Okay, so now we get some slightly more interesting thumbnails. Thumbs. Yeah, replace. And so now we get the thumbs for our code recording. Okay, now I'll go and talk about the interactivity. So this is already sort of covered by the tutorial, so I'll strip out the demo stuff we've been doing, put all this back in. So now these highlights will work as well. We'll take that out. Take out our prompt, our demo prompts rather. Don't need that anymore. And the markers. So I think I had intro was the first. And stir.match is not a function. Oh, that typically means that we've are missing a marker name. Oh, actually that usually means that we have that this is not this file isn't being loaded correctly. Yeah, if we go error messages from this in this software are often very hard to debug, unfortunately. I think console.log markers. That's fine. Show.tsx. Yeah. Let me take a moment again to figure out what's going on here. Okay, so there were two issues. One is that while I was trying to debug the code mirror stuff, I had commented this out and then included this here, so that I was not happy about including a variable that wasn't defined. Then secondly, when I was restoring the markers, I screwed up. There's actually supposed to be an intro/Ractives marker as well. Since I no longer have the time for that, I'm just going to go and git checkout -- source markers. So reset that to normal. It's back to what it was. And now, need to make sure we're still compiling this. reason it is still... Oh, well, it has the new recording as well. Now, like the code recording that we did instead of the one that the tutorial had shipped with. Why is it starting there? Oh, intro.tsx. That should be fine. See, oh yeah, I think, right. Also, when I was debugging, I had changed this to something different. So yeah, there was no issue in the code here with the code mirror. There was a very embarrassing bug in the codebooth package where I hard-coded the starting marker as code mirror. Oh yeah, while we were, I think I forgot to do this, once we had gone back to this, this codebooth package accepts, so here mode is like setting the code mirror mode to JavaScript. Start is like the marker where the recording should start. So in that case, that's the code mirror. An interpreter. So interpreters, you can like provide an interpreter to like run the code. So I've put the JavaScript interpreter in this lib directory, which I said is like going to be shared between a whole bunch of different Ractives that you use. So this is a very basic interpreter. This is basically just running JavaScript code through eval and faking a console to get the output in this pane. You can also do this, I've used this with Python as well, using the sculpt library to interpret Python. Okay, so now we've gotten away from the litany of errors. I'm going to talk more about interactivity. So one thing, oh yeah, so there's a warning about this on the site somewhere. Oh, okay, sorry, that part of the site is not written yet. I think it is, okay, so this is, in our mastering checklist so far we have covered these things. And so now it's the fat fingers and mouse up that I need to explain. So if we, right now if I click on the video, nothing happens. But normally if you're watching a video, when you click on the video, it will like pause and play it. This is like the behavior of usual, like on a YouTube video, if you click the video, that will pause or play it. But this is a problem if if some parts of the video are supposed to be interactive, you want the viewer to be able to interact with that without pausing and stopping the video. So when it says canvas click is an event, just meaning that somewhere the video has been clicked and that'll pause and restart it. And there's have to be careful because when the recording module is enabled, it will disable that just because it's kind of annoying while you're recording, but that means you might not catch it. So if we take the recording module out, then now
so this
you can
is
see when I click the canvas, it pauses and plays. So we skip ahead to this part of the demo where I invited the user to change the background color of the video. Why did that not work? Oh, there we go. Yeah, the background or the subtitle. If we go into the source for intro.tsx, on this div, which contains like the code for fiddling with the Ractive, I have this attribute on mouse up equals player.preventCanvasClick. So the player class you load from, this is one of the things you can import from Ractive-Player. And then to prevent canvas clicking, you just attach like on mouse up equals prevent canvas click, and then the user can click in here without pausing the video. Clicking outside will still have the same behavior. Okay, so that's one of the things you have to do to to make inputs work as expected. Is you need to prevent the canvas clicking behavior. Let's change this god-awful background back. So another thing I might want to do for interactivity is like drag and drop functionality. So I've got, let me put the media URL back so we have our pictures. Okay, so
that out. Or you might
show you how to use the one of the drag helpers. So dragging and dropping is a bit of a tricky thing on. So where's the utils slide? Yeah, so here's the code for the utilities slide, which shows how there's an animated duck here.
Utils.animation.animated duck.
So that moves the duck around, and it also shows how to make this draggable pig. So for the draggable pig, so both of these come from utils. So during and from we've already seen, and then drag helper react is going to be the thing that we use to make the interactivity. We go down here. So yeah, this is just attaching, like telling those bullet points to appear at the appropriate markers. Then here on the pig, so class name equals draggable. Somewhere in the style sheet, yeah, I have something saying like, okay, draggable things will have a drag cursor, and then we've attached pig events here. So pig events, what is that? That comes from, so we use react.useMemo because this creates an object, and then drag helper react. So this is going to get, we pass to this 3 event handlers. The first one is what happens when like the cursor is moved. Second one is when there's cursor down, and the last one is when the cursor up. And this helper will like abstract over so that this will work with both like desktop mouse dragging and mobile or touchscreen finger dragging. It'll abstract over the differences between those. So the down, the down event is going to just set up some stuff and add the dragging class. So the dragging class is like when I click on this, the cursor switches from draggable to like dragging, and the up event removes that. So the most complicated stuff is in the move event. So your event handler is passed this native event, which is either a touch event or a mouse event, depending on it's like a touch screen or a desktop. And then hit, this is just contains like the X and Y coordinates of where the mouse currently is. And then dx dy, this is also, this is like the change from the last motion if you want to use that. And so then I've just set the top, and so this is making sure that we can't drag the pig off the screen. So why there's some complicated math there, but then it basically works just by assigning, by changing the pig styles, or the pig's images CSS. So here I've used percentages. It's generally good to put everything in percentages, or like relative units, or like relative to the root font size, for instance, so that this will all just scale appropriately. Then what we're doing here is, so constrain is another utility. So utils.misc is sort of just a kitchen sink of random stuff that ought to be in JavaScript but isn't. And so constrain, you pass it 3 values. The middle value is sort of the one that you want, but then the first one is a lower bound and the last one is an upper bound. And then if it's lower than the lower bound, then it'll just give you min, and if it's bigger than max, then it'll just give you max. So here I've said constrain 0 is saying I can't pull it off the screen. Then to this part is telling it how to like where to put the pig. So we've got hit.x, which is the like x coordinate of like where the cursor is on the screen. But since basically since the left is sort of relative, the left is relative to this rp canvas, this canvas div, which is not like all the way to the left on the screen. We have to subtract off like the x coordinate of like how far left the canvas is, and this is the I guess this was our initial sort of offset, like where if we clicked on the pig.
And then there's also a helper.
Sorry. So when we initially clicked on the pig, like when we say left and top, that's positioning the top left corner of the pig image. So if I so when we write left and top, that is positioning where this is. So the other important thing that I was doing in the down event is to say, okay, like if you click on here, then it needs to measure the distance from here to this point. And so it saves that in offset, and then then uses that to calculate the relative position, and divides by player canvas width or player canvas offset height to get the percentage. The percentage here. This also, so I haven't gotten so far into the JavaScript yet, but player is sort of this global context for everything you can be doing in your Ractive. So the way you access that is use player. So that's just a hook that is sort of exported at the root of the library. And then you can use player equals use player. And then one of the properties of player is the canvas. So this is like the root of where all of the all your content is attached. And I also had this animation helper. So for the duck, so let's now talk about the duck. So animate. So here we've const duck equals useRef, so that's a reference to this HTML element. Then this rotate, so I've got useMemo, so this is, animate is going to give me back a function that takes in a time and spits out just some value. So by default, the start value is 0. I've set the end value here. By default, it's 1. I've set the end value to 2 pi because I want to rotate it in a full circle. The start time is saying like when the animation should start. And again, here I've accessed, so I've done player.script.parseStart, so that'll give me, that will spit out the time where like that marker occurs. So by switching to that marker, like when I'm recording, that's what causes the animation to fire. Duration is how long the animation should run in milliseconds, so that's 1 second. And then easing is an easing function to make the animation seem more natural, which just linear animation does not look natural. So that is using a separate library called Bezier easing for Bezier curves, and then I just copied the parameters for an ease-in sine transition. So then rotate. What we end up with is, like what it gives us in the end is a function which takes in a number and spits out a number. So the number t that it's taking is the current playback time of the Ractive, and the number it's spitting out is going to be the angle at which to display it. So use time update, this is another hook. So this will run anytime like the current time of the Ractive changes, like where it's playing. So all of these would be firing like a use time update hook. And then in here, we would say p, so p is for progress, so p equals rotate t, so that'll give us like the angle at which it should be rotated. And then here, now I'm setting the left and top properties to that angle around the circle. So it's like centered at 3515 with a horizontal radius of 15 and a vertical radius of 12.5. It's moving in an elliptical motion rather than a circle, really. Okay, so that's some of the basic animation and dragging. Something else I should have mentioned, just realized on the intro slide. So already discussed, you need to add the prevent canvas click to stop this from pausing,
making it easier to
and starting the video. But there's another thing you need to do whenever you have a text input. So there's keyboard controls for the player, like I already mentioned, the E and W. Space will pause and play. I think K will also pause and play. J and L will seek. This is pretty much the same as the YouTube controls. So you need to disable the keyboard controls whenever a text input is focused. So that, so if we go here, okay, yeah, so here in the text area in the intro slide, we have an on blur equals player.resume key capture and on focus equals player.suspend key capture. And be careful here, the on mouse up is attached to like the player static class, but the resume key capture and suspend key capture are attached to the player instance. So to use those, we need to have the use player hook at the beginning of this. So if we took these out, and then went into here, now I try typing, then it's
for example,
screwed up
try
because
changing the background color of this.
Yeah, anytime I try to press
Even
E or
without
W,
this format,
it's screwing the video around. So this is another very important thing for just making sure your Ractive actually works in a predictable way. I think there's a note about this in the authoring section of the documentation. There's this thing about forms explaining this. Okay. So already mentioned fake full screen. So fat fingers. This was another thing on our mastering list. What this is referring to is that just on mobile, it's very hard to precisely, or if you're using your touch screen, the finger, it's hard to precisely click a component. So I guess I don't have an example of this in the main tutorial, but in the, I think, in the math tutorial, okay, so in the math tutorial, there's an example of this, so I can drag this thing in the video, this circle in the video, and in the source, this is the wrong console window. Okay, so in the source, I've got this circle, draggable point A, but then I've got this second circle with the class fat fingers. So this is, the fat fingers is not displaying here because I'm not on mobile, so I won't need it. But actually, this would probably be good to have. One thing I didn't realize until I got this new laptop is it's not quite optimized yet for screens like desktop touch screens, so where you have both a mouse and the ability to do finger touches. That'll be fixed pretty soon. But anyway, so this additional circle here, this is basically just a transparent circle with a much larger radius. So if we got rid of that, then we could, like drag it all the way from here, which is sort of not precisely on the circle, whereas we can't do that here. And so that'll, to make this use like your, to make anything for touch screen, so whether that's like a laptop touch screen or a mobile device, to make it usable, you need to make your clickable areas larger than just what they look like, or else the user will be having to like press their finger multiple times to hit like the exact right spot on the screen. So I think there's it gives you some example CSS to write for that here. So yeah, so here's this is for an HTML component. If you had like a button or some HTML element that was being clicked on, and then for SVG components, which is what I use this for more often than HTML, you can just use like a larger, if you have like a circle element, you can just put a circle element which is transparent and has a much larger radius behind it to increase the clickable area. Let's see, other the things. Another thing is if you are on mobile, so React has like an on-click event, but it doesn't really, click events don't really work reliably. So when you want to respond to a touch the same way as you'd respond to a click, so there's an on-click helper in the library that will act as a, should be in the mobile section. Yeah, maybe the type declaration is not the, let's see if we have an example in here. Aha. Okay, so there's not in the main, in the like Ractive content, but there is in one of the optional library helpers. So I'll actually demonstrate this also. So more in the, like all the stuff that's commented out here, but that you can explore, is this help control. Where do I, yeah, and if I put it in here, help control. So now that will give this help control that explains all the video shortcuts. So I've made this optional, but you might want to put this in so your users know like those keyboard shortcuts I was mentioning earlier, here's what they are. J is go back 10 seconds, left is go back 5 seconds, K or space, etc. So yeah, so then it's good to see how to make a custom control. So how you put controls in is, as we've been doing before, you put it in this section where you're configuring the controls, which gets passed to player here. So then the source, again, the help control is in this library directory. So what does this do? So the key map, talk about that later. There's a way to, you can customize the key recordings, or sorry, the keyboard shortcuts used by the player. So what this is doing is this is adding a new keyboard shortcut to when the user presses the question mark key to open up the help dialog. And then the escape binds the escape key to close the help dialog. So this is also showing you how to customize, add your own keyboard shortcuts. And then this events, so here's how you use the on-click helper. So again, you import utils from Ractive-Player. Then you extract on-click from the mobile utils helper. And then you just attach, you give it like the callback that you want to happen when something is clicked. You memoize that because it's going to give you back a block of React stuff. And then where are the events? Oh yeah, and so we've attached the events here. So now that that attaches some like on-click and like on-touch stuff that will deal with the complications of like parsing touch events as click events. There's newer browsers, the pointer events API might be a cleaner way to do this, but that isn't universally supported, or like in if you need to support older browsers. This is this is how you can have a custom control. You could put your own help dialog here. Maybe I'll go through explain a few more things that are in this lib directory. So link.tsx, again, this is dealing with some of the so in intro.tsx I have some links to like the Diamond Age Wikipedia page or Reddit or this repository. And again, if you click on a link, that you don't want to pause the video, so a link should always have an on mouse up player canvas click attached to it. And I've also said like open the link in a new tab, so we're not navigating out. In fact, I think if you didn't have this, it would open it in the iframe that the video is playing in, which would be weird. Loading screen. This is an optional thing for this is sort of a legacy, in some ways a legacy thing. Telling the player to be ready is mostly due to math jacks taking a long time to render, and so sort of like in the math tutorial, here's that loading screen, and technically some of it is waiting for the audio to be ready to be played, but like 90% of that is just like almost all of that was caused by math jacks rendering. So that having to like say when the player is ready, that comes from math jacks, and that might be taken out in a future release. So a loading screen, kind of optional, but if you want to load some, or if you wanted to like load data from via Ajax for your video, then you could display this while it's loading that and getting all the data ready, and then say it's ready once it's ready to play. So that's the loading screen. Rebind arrow keys. So this is another example of how to customize the keyboard controls. What I did here is, so by default, the arrow right, like right arrow by default will seek, like in the video. I find it helpful when recording to, I have like a clicker for my laptop, so instead of pressing E on my keyboard while I'm recording to advance to the next marker, I can just press the next button on my clicker. It doesn't make a sound in the recording. It's easier. But the clicker that I have just always sends the keyboard event a right key. So for recording, I have done this little thing to rebind. So here I'm going and unbinding whatever the left arrow key was doing, whatever the right arrow key was doing, and then I'm binding arrow right to the function script.forward is what gets called when you press E. It advances to the next marker. So you don't need that. You could comment that out. Remember volume settings. So here, what have I done? Yeah, it's angry at me for something again. Oh, get rid of this because I didn't load the loading screen. Okay, so remember volume settings is here. If I change the volume and then reload the page, it doesn't remember that. So remember volume settings will, if you turn that on, and you have to pass this player.playback. So if you do that, then maybe it needs, it's possible that it needs permissions for local, oh, no, now it's working. So it's remembering the volume settings from page to page. So the reason this is not, was originally on by default in the library, but in order to remember any sort of settings, you'd need to have some sort of local storage on the user's computer, and because of GPDR, you don't want to just have that on by default. So that's what this remember volume settings does. Again, this is not, all this stuff is not in the lib directory, is not in the standard library or the base library. It's just stuff in this tutorial that I've found useful. Seek on load. So this is a thing for if you want to link to a particular part in a video, then you can do t equals $t equals 135, and it'll, so then when the video loads, it'll start there, like this. And that also works, usually you're not going to be, you're not going to send people right to this page. They're going to see the video embedded in some other page. So this will also work if we go t equals 5 minutes here, then it'll start the video there. So the source for that is, this is some horrible regular expression to parse a time thing, but what it's doing is looking, okay, parent, does the parent have a t equals thing, and if so, playback.seek to that point. Then this last one, show marker name. This is just another example of a custom control. I want to add custom controls. Oh, that's already imported. So what that'll do is just show you the name of the current marker that you're on. So this can be handy when you're developing to keep track of stuff. Again, the source for that, you can see how to do things like this. This is how you can get the current marker name. Some other things Okay, so that's everything in the lib directory. I guess some other types of effects you might want are, another thing in the tutorial is it shows you how to pause the video at a certain point. So I think that's in the intro. Yeah, so we've got a marker intro/pause. And so at some point in the video I say, oh, I'll pause the video so you can try that out. Then just press play to continue. So how you actually implement that is, so here first M is going to be just the time where of the pause marker. So that's just the number, that's going to be the time in milliseconds. We're also going to keep track of the previous time that the player was at. And so every time we have a time update event, which is like several times per second, we'll check we'll check is to see if the player, like playback time is now after this, and also like slightly after this, and also the previous time was slightly before this. So this, you want to do this so that like what you're doing here is making sure that like once it gets past intro/pause,
Try changing the background. Even without interactivity, try changing the background color of this video, or the subtitle. I'll pause the video so you can try that out. Just click the play button to continue.
Yeah, so it only pauses the video if you're like watching normally, and then cross over the intro/pause marker. Once we resume, it's not like if we only had this, if you're very close to the pause marker without also checking the previous time, then it might just like keep pausing every time you try to replay it after that time. So yeah, this is how you do like a pause at a particular time. This might become clear already. This is not a super opinionated framework. It's trying to be, in some ways, like a thing like React, just a very general purpose framework that a lot of other stuff can be built on top of. So a lot of these like things that you might want to do, like this or seek unload or remember volume, are not in standard library, but you might put them in your own personal sort of library of plugins and functions. You could it's very imaginable that you could turn this into or things like this into npm packages once it became standardized enough. So yeah, I mean, all of the plugins I mentioned were things that I sort of developed enough for my own use that it seemed robust enough to package it into a separate plugin. But I really need to see how people are using this technology before sort of making prescriptions about how it should be used. So and like with the controls, this gives you a lot of flexibility in like how you actually want this to turn out. I think I will probably wrap things up here. We've covered a huge amount of information. I've tried to make it so that once you sort of get into the swing of things, this is a very pleasant authoring and recording environment, but there is quite a learning curve. So there's a bunch more stuff in the tutorial. We'll like show you how to do, as well as some other stuff in the math tutorial. Actually, I had somewhere over here. The math tutorial explains all the math features, like doing graphics or 3D graphics, all that good stuff. But yeah, it's been going on for more than a couple hours, so I think we'll wrap up. And again, I'm always available for more individualized questions on troubleshooting. Thanks for watching.